Hello, Angel.
Hello, Marita. Good morning.
Good morning. You have an amazing topic for us today. Why don't you introduce it and start weaving this beautiful plática?
We wanted to talk about the myth of others. This idea that comes from the separation from nature, separation from each other, separation from our land, our ancestors, our tradition, and the ultimate disconnection is this idea that there are others out there that are not related to me, that allow us to live sometimes a life quite sheltered because what is happening, it's not me, or it's not my immediate relative, it's not my family. This child that is dying is not mine. This land that's being destroyed is not mine. This water that is polluted is not the water I'm drinking. And I think we're all pretty aware that we live in a closed system, a closed planet, that everything is connected, not just on the molecular and physical level, and the waters and the air, everything circulate. And we experience what is done somewhere else on the earth with our own health. And it's quite clear now with the plastic in the oceans that every rainfall in the world, it doesn't really matter where this plastic come from and who's thrown it away. But I think because we are such connected beings in ways that we can probably not always perceive the depth, we are experiencing the turmoil of every living beings on this planet, every living souls, humans and non-humans. And there is a reflex, I think, when the world becomes chaotic, complicated, when we witness violence, things that sometimes we can't even put words on it anymore because it's beyond maybe something our system, our bodies can even feel or receive. There's a tendency that we can sometimes retract on ourselves and disconnect ourselves and somehow find this little paradise on our little land, on our little island, in our little compound where we're going to shelter ourselves into place. But we're experiencing all of it, all of it. And this heaviness that we feel sometimes that is coming from nowhere is in fact this harm that is done to our families, people, animals, trees. You know, we might not feel that when we see the burning rainforest in Brazil, but I know I cried when I flew over it going to Peru and at night and I saw all those fires as far as my eyes can see at night. I was taken by this grief. And if we take decision, and that's probably the biggest complexity today, because we have leadership that is not living per those ancient rules that what we done to others, we're doing it to us. And leadership today say, well, we're going to keep those people out and we are going to do this for ourselves. We're closing onto ourselves as nations, as religions, as people, a bit weaving on what we talked about last week, which is scarcity. We think there's not enough for everyone, so we are going to keep what we can. And we do that as the level of individuals, and we do that at the level of countries. We do that at the level also of race, anyway. The white people are like, okay, we're going to keep whatever power we have, we're going to try to keep it. This idea that somehow if someone else have less, I'm going to get more, and if someone else suffer, I'm not going to feel it. Whatever the consequences on the others, as long as I'm okay, we're okay. And we know where this is leading because there are stories, ancient stories in the cosmology, when we started separated ourselves from each other's, from nature, that it comes back. Every prayer that we put out there is going to come back one way or another. And us trying to avoid that pain, which sometimes, you know, it's so overwhelming because we don't have the rituals and the ceremonies and the communities to process this grief, to process the pain that's, you know, very often we're just like, I'm not going to feel it. And I'm just going to try to save myself. It's such a short-term vision because creating more pain out there is going to create more pain for us. We can sit in the world today having an effect back. And the ancient ways, they are calling us into living from that place that this life is not about me, it's about the others. And it also tells us, well, there is no others. It's telling us this two very interesting concept that the mind cannot sit with. Well, is there others or there is no others? Right? It's telling us no to be in giving and to be in relation and to care for the others, either being land or people or animals or waters. And at the same time, it's telling us there is no others, really. There's just one big living being. And it really requires us to do deep, deep dive into our hearts, into our ancient connections, to be able to feel into what that means for us as individuals. How do we live from that perspective that there is no others? And also as collective on the decision we made. And how is that turning out when we don't include others, or when we keep our power over others?
Wow, so much here. So much here. I think it's important at this time in these conversations that we're having, that when Angel and I are using words, the imagery that we're using, those words come from an indigenous way of being and roots. And what we are trying our best to do is talk about the complexity and the fissure between the Western world using a word like privilege and equality versus the indigenous world. The the indigenous world using the idea of individuality as part of a whole versus the Western world using, well, if everyone's the same, no one's special. These two worlds don't exist together. They can't, because they have a different, as we were speaking before, idea of value and relationship. So if you're feeling that tension, but Angel's saying this and Marita saying this, and it sounds really easy, but at the same time they're telling us this, it's because we're speaking from a cosmology, not from an individual philosophy or science, which is Western, right? So I wanted to say that because you said some really important things here, and I'll say it with a story. I will say one thing at the end though. When you were talking about how we're feeling the effects of all beings on this planet, right? That tension rising of whether it's food, land, water, right? We are in a time of great displacement. We have wasps right here, right now, over the last 2 days that just appeared out of nowhere. And they appeared out of the wind. We've been having some really big winds, and so they've lost their navigation. They're trying to find either their way back or a new home. And I can go about being like, why are these wasps here? This is my home. This is my air. It's not my air. I'm going to just kill them all. Or I can feel into their confusion, right? I can feel into their needs, their wants, their desires for family, community, shelter as well. And if I look at it as in that way, because they are me, we are connected, I will relate to them as my brothers and my sisters, not as an invader, not as something other. And it's small things like that. It is small moments like that that shape perception and reality. Me making that connection is far greater than someone completely disconnected and going out to protest, showing their connection. So, where does the revolution start? It starts in small, simple ways that you can do every day. We're coming upon a very, a time of, celebration of holidays, right? Be kind. Be kind when you're out there in the world. Simple thank yous instead of demanding that that other person isn't treating you. And so I wanted to bring that in because someone recently said this in the United States as they were debating in the Senate and the Congress over what's happening, that actually in Aotearoa in New Zealand, and someone stood up and said, when you come from a place of privilege and you've been experiencing privilege all your life, you don't even know you have privilege. Equality feels like oppression. And I wanted to put that here because in our ideas of the other, if you don't know abundance that you have around you, and you come from that scarcity, you will always create oppression for others, and you will create the other. It's just how we are. It doesn't make us good. It doesn't make us bad. It's just a function of being human. We have that in our program. And so, yes, my love, I'll let you out in a minute. And so, if we allow ourselves our humanity and recognize that's part of us, then we can deal with it with gentleness. That part of our displaced humanity that is looking to be nurtured and to be held when it is in fear and fright and flight. And instead of putting that on others, if we can be accountable to it, accountable to when I am scared, when I am stressed, when I am feeling disconnected, I react in ways to protect myself that can be violent. If we sit with that, if we as humans acknowledge that that's just part of what it means to be human, to deal with these emotions, to deal with stress, to deal and to live and choose in a volatile world. This earth is volatile. It likes learning in a very volatile way. Then we can start actually sitting with the reality of what we are creating, how we are creating it, how we are weaving either our fright and our flight or our love. And it's from small ways, from kittens wanting to get out and acknowledging and not stopping and starting again and acknowledging that tension with love. I'll get there. Instead of starting from scratch, wanting a perfect production. That's my cousin. My cousin is welcome in their discomfort, and I will help them. And so, again, I think it's really taking out these values that you've been given, such as perfectionism, white picket fences, all of this idea that has been told what a life is supposed to look like. Even the pursuit of happiness is not in the Constitution, but it is a declaration. Actually, if you look at the original writing and what people were saying at the time, an actual declaration of gratitude. The pursuit of happiness, written in the time of the language of what the people believed who wrote it, was I am grateful and abundant because I have what I need. And my pursuit of that is not the conquering of things, it is the acceptance that I am connected and there is no other. That was the heart of it. Because the heart of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution are based on Indigenous ways. So if we want to go forward, we need to go back to re-examine when we were connected and find ways, small ways every day to build that connection. There is no other, but there are individuals who individuate creation itself that make them unique and special. And everybody's special doesn't mean that everyone is the same. We need biodiversity. We need each other.
Yeah, I just want to add what you're sharing also made me reflect, and I think we talked about it in the previous talk, but just to put that as a closing, to inquire when we talk about healing, self-healing, especially in modern spirituality, the modern way holistic healing is talked about, it's very centered on the self. And I want to invite people listening to see how maybe that one thing you're trying to heal, maybe you are trying to feel safe, you are trying to feel abundant, you are trying to feel healthy, you are trying to experience a different kind of relation to the self, but see how that can be extended to others. See how gifting safety and security and healing to others can heal you back. I think once we start experiencing that the gift that we give out there to the others, in fact, our gift to ourselves, the way you are going to look at your individual healing health is going to radically shift. And there's a story for another time that we'll share around that. But experience, and sometimes we're so centered on the healing of the self that if we turn it around, then we have an embodied experience that there is no others. When we give that to others, see what happened. That's my invitation.
Thank you, Angel.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Marie.